Okay, so the last topic we have seen the different type of glands and the movement of the alimentary canal. That now we will be starting the digestion and the gastrointestinal secretion. So we'll see the how the digestion will take place in the different parts of the body, in the different parts of alimentary canal. Okay, so first of all, let us see the digestion of the carbohydrates. Digestion of the carbohydrates. Okay. So the carbohydrates are the first starting of the digestion of the carbohydrates take place in the mouth itself. The digestion of the carbohydrates will start in the mouth itself. The carbohydrates are the polysaccharide, we know that. Okay, so most of the food substance are basically present in the form of carbohydrate. They will be having the major source of the food substance in mostly the animals will be the carbohydrates. Like if you are eating rice, if you are eating the fruits like the banana, if you're eating the wheat, if you're eating the potato, all that, they all will be consisting the carbohydrates in very high amount. Okay, and these carbohydrates are mainly found in the form of starch. Particularly, this has to be divided, this has to be digested into the simplest form, that is the monosaccharides. Now the main source of food as the carbohydrate will be of polysaccharide, disaccharide or monosaccharides. Now out of this, the monosaccharide is the one which is the most absorbable form. It is the simplest form of carbohydrate which is absorbed by the organism. Now all the enzymes which are altogether responsible for converting this digesting this carbohydrates are called as carbohydrases. Okay, which includes the enzymes which are present in the buccal cavity, that is salivary amylase, and also includes the enzymes which are present in the intestinal juice, which is the pancreatic amylase. Okay, now the intestinal it will be, let us see how this digestion will take place. So it starts with the starch which will be present in most of the food material, will be converted to maltose or isomaltose in the presence of amylase. Now this amylase can be of two types. That is pancreatic amylase, which is released from the pancreas and present in the small intestine, and it can be salivary amylase, which is present in the buccal cavity and released in the saliva. Okay, then it can digest in the starch into maltose, isomaltose and the dextrine, and this will be getting converted to glucose, that is the most absorbable form in the presence of maltase or isomaltase. The second is disaccharide. The sucrose can be converted to glucose plus fructose in the presence of an enzyme called as sucrase, which is sucrose is nothing but a common sugar what we eat. Particularly lactose, which is a milk sugar, will be converted to glucose and galactose in the presence of enzyme lactase. Okay, so these are different type of enzymes responsible for digestion of carbohydrates particularly. Next is the digestion of proteins. Now the proteins are the one. It's a type of polymers again, which is made up of repeating unit, which is made up of different types of amino acids. So the most absorbable form of the proteins is the amino acids. Okay, now these proteins will be digested into proteases. This will be digested into small proteins, or we can say peptides. Okay, so depending on the type of proteins, if the protein has got number of amino acids, it is called as protein, or if it is having a small number of amino acids like 10 to 20, it is called as peptide. So depending on the substrate, it may be proteases, it may be peptidases. Okay, now these proteins which are digesting the enzymes which are digesting proteins are mostly present in inactive form. Why? Because if they are present in active form, they may digest the body component as well when it is not required. Okay, so they are activated only when they are required. So the proenzyme, this inactive form of proteins, inactive form of enzymes is called as proenzymes or called as zymogen. Example, the chymotrypsinogen, trypsinogen, pepsinogen, these are the different type of proenzymes which are inactivated, and they are inactivated because if they are activated, they may lead to decomposition or degradation of the body component also, and they are converted to the active only when they are required and at the site of action. So in the case of buccal cavity, there is no digestion of protein take place. So protein will not be digested at all in the buccal cavity. This is something what we have to understand. And the digestion of the protein will starting only in the stomach. Okay, so the gastric juice will be consisting the protein called as pepsin, which will be responsible for digestion of the protein. Now the gastric juice is a mixture of all the juices, all the secretions which are present in the stomach. It mainly contains the water and the HCl responsible for providing the acidity, and due to the presence of HCl, the pH of the gastric juice will be around 1 to 2. Okay, and it is highly acidic in nature. The HCl is responsible for activating this inactive enzymes, that is proenzymes, into the activated form. Like the pepsinogen has to be activated into pepsin, and similarly prorenin has to be activated into renin. Okay, these are the two enzymes which are responsible for digestion of the proteins. So pepsin will be acting on the proteins different proteins, okay, and renin will be acting on the particularly milk protein called as casein. This casein is mainly found in the milk, and this is acted by the renin, which is enzyme which is found in the particularly infants, okay. Now this renin will be acting on casein and it converted into paracasein salts, paracasein particularly. The paracasein will be reacting with the calcium ions and forming the calcium paracasinate, which is the one on which the pepsin will be acting. So here you can see this is a prorenin which is activated by HCl to renin. Prorenin is getting activated by HCl to renin, and then in the presence of HCl. Similarly, pepsinogen, which is inactive form, will be getting converted to pepsin in the presence of HCl. The HCl is activating this proenzymes into active form, and this renin is now acting on the milk casein protein and converting this milk casein into paracasein, Now this paracasein along with this calcium will be forming this calcium paracasinate, which is now acted by this pepsin. The calcium paracasinate will be acted by the pepsin, and that will convert the proteins casein into the peptones and the proteases, which will be further digested in the duodenum. Okay, that was about the digestion in the stomach. Mainly in the case of stomach, it will be also consisting a small amount of lipase. It also consists of a small amount of lipase, but the lipase which is present in the stomach is of not significant importance. Okay, so we cannot consider that as an important enzyme, but still there are small amount of lipase is also present in the stomach. The next one is action of pancreatic and intestinal juice. Once the food from the stomach gets entered into the duodenum, that is small intestine, from the pyloric sphincter, it will be poured into the small intestine. The pancreatic juice, the small intestine will be getting the secretions from the three parts. Particularly the one will be the stomach from the pyloric sphincter, the other one will be the pancreas and the liver or the gallbladder. So the gallbladder and the pancreatic will be releasing the secretion from a common duct called as hepatopancreatic duct, okay, and which will be opening through the ampulla of water, okay, through a particular sphincter as well. Now this pancreatic juice will be consisting of the trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase. All these three are inactivated, and they will be activated in the presence of enterokinase and the trypsin. We will see how it is activated, right? It will be also consist of lipases, which is responsible for digestion of lipids, and maybe it also contains amylases for digestion of starch, and the DNA RNAs for the digestion of the nucleic acids. And all the enzymes can only function in the alkaline medium. This is something important. All the enzymes can function only in the alkaline medium, and which is provided by the bile juice. So this trypsinogen will be getting activated into trypsin in the presence of enterokinase. Okay, so this inactive form of trypsinogen will be getting activated into trypsin in the presence of enterokinase. Peptones and proteases will be getting activated by trypsin and will be converted into peptides. Okay, so these are the enzymes which are responsible for converting these proteins. Okay, we'll be seeing it further. Now chymotrypsinogen is again inactive form of enzyme which is secreted by the pancreas, and it is getting activated by trypsin. So in the presence of trypsin, this chymotrypsinogen, which is inactive form, will get converted to the trypsin, which is active form. Okay, and hydrolase of casein protein, like we have already seen that in the case of stomach, the casein was converted to paracasein in the presence of the pepsin or in the presence of the renin. But in the case of small intestine, the same casein is converted into paracasein in the presence of the trypsin. Okay, but over here the condition is not acidic condition; it will be requiring the alkaline condition. And the same protein, this trypsin, can also act on other proteins as well. Next is the digestion of fats. When I say digestion of fats, so the lipids will be the stomach will also consist a small amount of gastric lipase, but it will not be significant, as I already told you. Now the main digestion of the fats will be starting through the duodenum. So exactly the fats will be having a very big amount, very big size droplets will be formed, very big size of globules of fats will be present in the food. So whatever food substance we eat will be having a very big globular structure will be formed. Now this globules has to be broken down to simple droplets. Okay, so how it is done? The bile juice will be consisting some detergents, or we can say these are some called as emulsifier agents. They are called as emulsifier agents. So they will be responsible for breaking down this big fat globules into small droplets. They will be responsible for breaking down this big fat globules into small droplets, and this process is called as emulsification. This process of breaking down the big fat globules into small droplets of fats is called as emulsification. These fat droplets are now small in size, and hence due to this they will be increasing the surface area and decreasing the surface tension. So the emulsification leads to the decreasing the surface tension and the increasing surface area of the fat droplets. Okay, now these fat droplets are acted by the lipase. These fat droplets are acted by the lipase in intestine, which is secreted by the pancreatic juice and intestinal juice both. Okay, that this lipase will be acting on this emulsified fats droplets, and which will be converting this fats into the diglyceride and monoglycerides, and each steps it will be releasing out the fatty acids, which will be further absorbed. Okay, so we will be seeing how it is absorbed as well. Next is digestion of nucleic acids. Nucleic acids are basically digested by the enzymes called as nucleases, which can be of two types, that is DNase and the RNase. Now this nucleic acids digestion is also beginning at the intestine only. It is not found neither in the mouth nor in the stomach. Okay, so they will be digested in the intestine only in the presence of enzymes called as DNase and the RNases. So it contains when the intestinal juices will be contained is DNA, once deoxyribonucleic acid will be digested into. So where you can say DNA is digested into deoxyribonucleotides in the presence of DNase, while the RNase will be digesting RNA into ribonucleotides. But this nucleotide has to be further divided into nucleosides and inorganic phosphates in the presence of nucleotidases, and further the nucleosides is digested again in the presence of nucleosidases. You have to keep in mind the difference between nucleotide and nucleosides. Okay, nucleosides will be consisting only the pentose sugar and phosphate. And only the pentose sugar and the nitrogen base, while the nucleotides will be consisting the nitrogen base, pentose sugar and the phosphate molecule. Okay, so nucleosides will be the one which will be lastly acting on this nucleosides and will convert them into the last absorbable form, that is nitrogen bases. It may be purines or pyrimidine, and the pentose sugar will be released out, which will be absorbable form. Summarizing all this, we can say that chemical digestion of proteins will be occurring in different stages, and different what all digestion is basically taking place at different part, and different nutrient how it is digested. Let us see. So if we see about the protein is digested with the help of pepsin. It starts in the gastric juice. Okay, it starts in the stomach particularly, where the protein food is digested into proteases and peptones. This protease and peptones will further digested with the help of trypsin and chymotrypsin in the pancreatic juice, and which will be further digested into peptides and tripeptides, and will be leading to the formation of the simplest form of the protein, that is amino acids, which will be then taken up by the cells, absorbed by the cells. Okay, and next is the chemical digestion of carbohydrates. The carbohydrates starts from the buccal cavity itself, which is containing the starch. The starch is digested into disaccharides like maltose and isomaltose and dextrin, which is basically this digestion takes place with the help of amylase, which can be present in the saliva, that is called salivary amylase or ptyalin, or we can say the pancreatic amylase, which is present in the pancreas. Okay, now these disaccharides are again divided further into monosaccharides as glucose, fructose and galactose, which are the absorbable form in the presence of enzymes like maltase, lactase and sucrase, which are mainly found in the intestinal juices, right? Next is the chemical digestion of fats. Next is chemical digestion of fats. The fats digestion actually does not start either in mouth or in the stomach, but still there is a small amount of lipase is present in the stomach, but still it is not of significant use. Okay, so the main digestion starts in the salt in the intestine, where the bile salt or the bile juice will be acting on this big fat globules. So here it's not actually digestion. It is not actually digestion. It is converting this big fat globules into the smaller droplets, and this phenomena is called as emulsification. So this emulsification will lead to formation of small droplets of the fats called as emulsified fat droplets, which will be acted now by the pancreatic lipase and the intestinal lipase. Okay, and which will convert this fats into small fatty acids and the glycerol, which will be further absorbed, okay, in different forms. Last one is the digestion of nucleic acid. Nucleic acid digestion starts in the pancreatic juices only, in the intestine itself, which will be having the DNase and RNase, which will convert into nucleotides, and these nucleotides will be further converted into nucleosides with the help of nucleosidases, and later on the last form of the nucleic acids will be the nitrogen bases, pentose sugar and organic phosphates, which will be absorbed by the cells. Okay, so that was about the different nutrients getting digested by different enzymes. Next is a different part of how the digestion takes place in different part of the body. So first of the buccal cavity. So buccal cavity consists of the glands, salivary glands, and the enzyme which is present is salivary amylase, requires around 6.8 of pH, quite acidic pH, converts the starch into maltose. Okay, similarly also esophagus does not have got any type of enzymes, and it does not take part in the digestion directly. So note it down, it does not carry out mechanical digestion nor the chemical digestion. Okay, so in esophagus no digestion take place. Stomach, mainly the digestion take place in the fundic region, where the pepsin and renin is there. Renin is only found in the calves and the infants. Okay, and gastric lipase is there, but it is not significant. Pepsin is this stomach digestion requires a pH of around 1 to 3. Okay, and which digests the proteins into peptides, the pepsin, and the renin is responsible for digestion of the milk protein, the casein, and will convert it into the calcium paracasinate. Okay, there is a small amount of gastric lipase, but it will not be significant so much, but it digests the fats into glycerol and fatty acids. Liver, the liver will have the hepatocytes, will be responsible for formation of biles, will be stored in the gallbladder. Keep it in mind, it is stored in gallbladder, not synthesized over there, synthesized by hepatocytes. Okay, now bile is not an enzyme, it will be requiring this pH of around 7 to 8, and it will be acting on fats and will be emulsifying them into the small droplets of the fats. Pancreas has got two parts, that is achini. Pancreas has got two parts, that achini, which is responsible for secretion of the enzymes, that is trypsin, required around the pH of 7 to 8, acting on the proteins, peptones, and again apart from this chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase, all these are the ones which are acting on the proteins. Okay, so these are acting on the proteins, blood proteins and milk proteins, etc., and responsible for digesting the proteins into amino acids. It also has got amylase, which acts on the starch, which will be converting into the maltose, and this maltose will be further divided in, will be digested into the intestinal juice. Okay, with the help of intestinal juice. Lipases will be responsible for digesting the fats into glycerol fatty acids, and nucleases will be responsible for digesting the nucleic acids. Crypts of Lieberkühne is a type of cells which are present in the intestine wall, which is responsible for secretion of different type of enzymes. Enterokinase and erepsins, these are the one which are dipeptides. These are the three type of enzymes which are responsible for digestion of the peptides into the simplest form. Okay, so enterokinase is the enzyme which is responsible for activating this trypsinogen. The trypsinogen is in active form, is activated in the presence of enterokinase to trypsin, and erepsin and the tripeptidase are the enzymes which will be converting these peptides into the amino acids. Lipase will be converting them into the glycerol and fatty acids. Okay, and maltase is the one, maltase, sucrose and lactose will be converting disaccharides into the monosaccharides, glucose and fructose and galactose. And nucleotides and nucleosides will be converting these nucleotides into the free bases and the sugars and the phosphates. Large intestine will not be having any digestive enzyme, it will be only responsible for absorption of water and some particular elements, and it will be responsible for lubricating the feces material. Okay, there are different hormones which are responsible for regulating the secretion of the enzymes in different parts, like in the alimentary canal. The stomach will be basically controlled by the gastrin, and okay, it is stimulated by the acetylpepsin. It is often not, actually it is not going to be there for the exam point of view, but still you can have information. The duodenum of the intestine, small intestine, will be having the control by the different hormones, that is secretin, enterogestrone, aducanine, and the CCK, that is cholecystokinin, pancreozymin. Okay, these are different type of hormones which are responsible for regulating the secretions. And epithelium of duodenum and ileum is basically regulated by enteroscreenin, which is responsible for secretion of succus centricus. Okay, and intestinal villi is basically regulated by the villi kinin, and is responsible for the movement of villi to increase the absorption. So that's about the different hormone, how they basically regulate the secretion and how to regulate the functions. Now, once the food is digested, it has to be absorbed. And this absorption of the digested food products is basically in different forms. So the simplest form of the food substance has to be absorbed. So the end products of the digestion will be basically passing through this intestinal mucosa. Like we can say, the different nutrients will be having different last end product. Example, the carbohydrates will be having the monosaccharides as the glucose, fructose, or the galactose as an end product to be absorbed. While similarly, the proteins will be having the amino acids which has to be absorbed. Some amino acids may not be absorbed directly, so they will require to convert it into different amino acids. Okay, that is called as transamination process. Okay, so what is transamination process? The process by which the amino acid of one kind is getting converted to different type of amino acid. Okay, and like the nucleic acids will be converted into the sugars, the phosphates, and the nitrogen bases, which will be absorbed further. And the last one, the fats will be converted into fatty acids, and glycerol, which will be absorbed in different forms at different parts. Okay, now the absorption mainly can take place either by passive diffusion, which will not be requiring energy, and passive diffusion will be the movement will be basically directly from high concentration to low concentration. It will not be requiring any type of energy. Secondly, it can be facilitated movement with the help of some specific type of proteins or some specific type of elements. Along with that element, the nutrient substance can also be absorbed. Okay, while the third one is type of active transport. Active transport is the one where the movement of the substance will occur against the concentration gradient. It means it will be occurring from low concentration to high concentration, and because it is moving against the concentration gradient, it will requiring the energy as well. So example like simple diffusion, it's the glucose, amino acids and some electrolytes will be moving from high concentration to low concentration and easily absorbed by the epithelial cells, while the facilitated transportation will be requiring some other elements also. Along with this, 2 or 3 elements will be moving together, example fructose and some amino acids. And the last one is active transport, as I told you that it will requiring the concentration gradient movement across the concentration gradient, that is low to high. Okay. The last one, the fatty acids digestion is basically so important. It will be digesting into glycerol and the fatty acids. So the fatty acids and the glycerol are basically insoluble in nature. They are not soluble in water, so they will be not absorbed by the water, by the blood. Okay, they will not be taken up by the blood. So these fatty acids are basically absorbed by this what you can say, the mucosal layer. This mucosal layer will be basically now this fatty acids will be forming a droplet like structure called as micelles. They will be forming a droplet spherical structure called as micelles. Now this micelles will be taken up by the mucosa, and this mucosa will be in the endoplasmic reticulum of the mucosa will be forming the proteins, and these proteins will be coated by this micelles. These proteins will be coated by these micelles and will be forming a structure called as chylomicrons, which is called as chylomicrons. And these chylomicrons are the one which will be responsible for transportation of the fatty acids. Okay, these chylomicrons are now absorbed by the lymph vessels rather than the blood vessels, because blood vessels will not be solubilizing them. So they will be taken up by the lymph vessels, and the lymph vessels will transport them into different parts of the body. Okay, so let us see the different part and their absorption. So mouth is the one which is not really absorbing any nutrients. It can absorb some amount of the drugs. Some amount of drugs can be absorbed in the mouth. Stomach is the one which is mainly absorbing the water, simple sugars, and no other absorption of the nutrient is actually taking place. So stomach will be responsible for absorption of water, sugars, and the alcohol. The small intestine is the one which is main part of the principal organ of the absorption and even the digestion as well. So major part of the digestion is occurring in the small intestine, and at the same time the major part of the absorption is also occurring in the small intestine with the help of a microvilli and villi and microvilli, which will be increasing surface area of the intestine. Okay, so mainly the amino acids, the monosaccharides, carbohydrates, and the amino acids and the nitrogen based fats and the pentose sugars all will be absorbed in the small intestine. Even the fatty acids will be absorbed in the small intestine, which will be taken into the lymph. In the large intestine, major nutrient will not be absorbed, only the absorption of the water will be occurring, and some nutrients, some minerals and the drugs may also get absorbed over there. So you can see that pictorial presentation where this is the lumen of the intestine and this is the epithelial cells, and these epithelial cells are basically connected with this blood capillaries and the lymphatic capillaries, right? Now what is happening, this epithelial cells has got the increased surface area, okay, which are called as villi, and villi will be further increasing the surface area by having the microvilli on the surfaces. Now let us see, these proteins are digested with the help of different enzymes present in the gastric juice and the intestinal juice, which will be converting them into the simplest form, that is the amino acids. These amino acids will be uptaken by this villi, and this will be then transported with the help of blood vessels, right? Similarly, the carbohydrates, which are polymers, will be digested into monosaccharides and will be taken up by the epithelial cells and will be taken up by the blood vessels. But at the same time, when we say this fats are the big fat globules which are basically acted by the bile juice and will be getting converted to emulsified droplets. By this emulsified droplets will be having high surface area and low surface tension, due to which it will be forming these small droplets. This monoglycerides will be formed by the action of the fat lipase particularly. This lipase will be converting them into small monoglycerides and the free fatty acids. Now these fatty acids will be taken up by these epithelial cells, and here it will be getting coated on these small proteins. It will be getting coated on the small proteins and forming a structure called as chylomicrons. Now these chylomicrons will be absorbed by the lymphatic capillary. Keep in mind, it is absorbed by the lymphatic capillary instead of the blood capillary. It has to be kept in mind. It may be asked in the question. Okay, so this is how the absorption of different substances will be taking place in the different area. Next is the assimilation. So what is assimilation? Assimilation is basically the utilization of the food substances which is taken inside. So once the food is digested and it's absorbed by the organism, then this food has to be taken to different parts of the body, where it is utilized either for the formation of energy or the formation of the different part of the structural component of the body, and is also used for different other purposes as well, like formation of enzyme or formation of carrying out the different biochemical reactions. Okay. So this is the called as assimilation. What is assimilation? It is utilization of the absorbed food substances in the body. Now this apart from the whatever the food we take, not all the part of the food will be digested and absorbed. There will be some remaining in the alimentary tract as well. So the undigested and unabsorbed food material will be called as waste. So undigested and unabsorbed food material will be called as waste, which will be later on solidified due to the absorption of water in the intestine particularly. So large intestine will be absorbing the water, and then it will be releasing out the solid or semi-solid waste out of the body with the help of the neural reflexes, which causes the urge to release that particular waste. Okay, before releasing out it out through the anus, it will be stored in the rectum for a while, and which will be again controlled by a specific voluntary muscles, okay, which is called as sphincter muscles. Okay, so egestion is the removal of the waste material from the body in the form of fecal waste. Okay, and this removal of the fecal waste or egestion is a voluntary process, which is again controlled by the sphincter muscles, and it is again caused due to the mass peristaltic movement. Okay, that was about the assimilation. Last one is egestion. So as we told that what is egestion? Egestion is the removal of the food undigested and unabsorbed food material waste in the semi-solid form through the anus. Okay, and this egestion is done after the absorption of the water and the different minerals from the colon. The colon will be also the place or the site of particular bacteria, which is mainly the E. coli bacteria. This E. coli bacteria are feeding or basically getting the nutrients from the fecal waste what is basically removed out, but in return they will be also providing us some specific substances like the vitamin K and other different substances which will be helpful for us. Okay, so they are in association of us, symbiotic association. This is called as normal flora of the intestine. Okay, so they are symbiotically associated with the human body. They will be providing the vitamins and some important active compounds required for the body, and in return they will be basically getting the nutrients from the fecal waste. Okay, so they do not harm in body particularly, but in some cases they may be responsible for causing some diseases in some cases, particularly when the things may not go proper. Okay, now the feces is the semi-solid substances which is removed out of the body as undigested and unabsorbed food material. Now this feces is mainly consisting of around 60-70% of water, and apart from this water, the whatever substances there, it consists of around 10-20% will be consisting of inorganic substances, and 30% of the feces will be consisting of the dead material, dead bacteria. So it is full of bacteria. We have to very much careful regarding this, and hence it should be open defecation should be prevented. So the feces which is removed out will be consisting of many bacteria out of the body, and 10-20% of fat will be present in the feces, and 2-3% protein, and around 30% will be consisting of roughage and the dry constituents of digestive juices. The feces will be having color of around yellowish to brownish color due to the presence of the pigment which is caused due to the degradation of the bile salts, that is stercobilin pigment will be responsible for its color. And the foul smell which is basically produced by this fecal waste is nothing but because of the gas which is produced by the microbes which are present in this feces. This gas is the 3-methyl-indole. The 3-methyl-indole is the one which is responsible for this foul smell of the fecal waste. Okay, next is the disorders of digestive system. So let us see disorders of the digestive system. There are a lot of instances where the digestive system may not function well. It may be due to some sort of lifestyle disorders, or it may be due to the infection. So the most of the disorders are basically due to the inflammation which is caused due to the intestinal infection. It is due to the infection of the intestinal tract, either by the viral, parasitic, or the bacterial. So there are different type of infection which may be responsible for even causing the pain of the intestinal tract. Okay, so this are basically due to the bacterial infection, or by the viral, or the parasitic infection like the tapeworm. Okay, another more important digestive or disorder is the jaundice. Jaundice, in the case of jaundice, what happens? The liver will start dysfunctioning. The cells of the liver starts dysfunctioning, and they will start getting killed, due to which they will be releasing a high amount of bile salts in the blood. They will releasing the high amount of bile salts in the blood, due to which the color of the skin and the color of the eyes and nails will become yellowish in color, and this is the symptom of this jaundice particularly. This is mainly caused by the viruses like hepatitis B, hepatitis C, and this is responsible. If it is not treated in a proper time, it may lead to different type of complications and may lead to death of the person, okay, who is suffering from it. So jaundice. After jaundice, the another is the vomiting. Vomiting is removal of the food material from the stomach from the mouth. Okay, so it's ejection of the food material through the mouth. Okay, which is mainly occurring due to the consumption of any substance which is not actually consumable, or due to some specific type of foreign particle which may be causing some sort of vomiting response. And its control center is in brain, that is in the hindbrain, that is medulla is the control center. Before vomiting, the person will be feeling the nausea, that is the feeling of uncomfortability before vomiting. Okay, now in some instances it believes that vomiting is a good thing, because if whatever substance like which is not consumable has to be removed out from the body by vomiting. Okay, next one is diarrhea. So diarrhea is frequent removal of the food, removal of the feces in liquid form. Okay, frequent removal of the feces in the liquid form. And because it is liquid form, it means that the body is not absorbing the food properly, and it is not absorbing the water as well, and hence the person will be may suffer from the water loss. Okay, so diarrhea is again a big problem. If it is in the early stages, it can basically lead to death if it is not treated properly. But nowadays the proper treatment is available, hence it is not so much problematic. Next is the constipation. It is irregular bowel movements of a person. So the person may be not able to defecate regularly, or the feces material will be stored and will not be adjusted frequently, and that particular thing is called as constipation. It may be due to different reasons, due to mainly the lack of exercise, due to mainly the lifestyle problems. Okay, and mainly due to the kind of food substance which we eat. Okay, and there are other stress is also considered to be one of the reason of constipation. Okay, next is indigestion. Indigestion is that particular thing when the nutrients are taken up by the body. It's basically food is taken up by the body, but the nutrients are not digested properly. It may be due to inadequate enzyme secretion, or due to some other type like food poisoning or anxiety, or having a specific type of food like spicy food and all that. So that may be leading to different type of complications. So that has to be avoided. Okay, so this was about the different type of disorders of the digestive system. Now let us see the summary of the vitamins. Apart from these nutrients, the carbohydrate and all that, carbohydrate, fat and proteins, the organisms will be also requiring the vitamins. So let us see a summarized form of vitamins which are required by the body. So if we will be seeing it in a brief, okay, you can go through these particular tables. Okay, now the summary of vitamins, which will be of two types. Vitamins are of two types, that is water soluble and the water insoluble. Water soluble consists of first of all B complex. B complex consists a group of vitamins termed as B1, B2 and B6 and like that, right? So the different how many requirements is there, and how that is common source, function and efficiency will be seeing that. So B1 is a thiamine, called as thiamine. It is required around 1.5 mg, mainly found in the yeast, wheat and peanuts and all that. And its deficiency can cause the beriberi. Its main function is as a part of the coenzyme in the aerobic metabolism. You will be seeing that. Okay, it can decompose by cooking. So it is told to eat the raw food material, raw foods and all that, right? Because it will be not decomposed. Second is riboflavin. It is required around 2 mg, mainly found in liver, cheese, yeast, vegetables, etc. It's a part of coenzyme FMN and FAD, which is a part of electron transport chain in the respiratory system. You will studying that as well. So in this deficiency, the inflammation of eye may occur and the leaf source will occur. It's the highly exposure of light may be responsible for its decomposition. Pantothenic acid is required around 5 to 10 mg. Yeast, peas, liver, etc. is found. It's again part of coenzyme in cell respiration, and it's how its abnormal adrenal function may occur if it's deficient. Okay, so adrenal is the gland which responds formation of the hormones, and if it is absent, it may lead to different type of problems. Okay, B6, vitamin B6 is a pyridoxine. 2 mg is required. It's mainly found in the meat, milk, wheat, jam, etc. And it's also forming the part of coenzyme in amino acid metabolism, and it's also responsible for glycogen synthesis. Okay, so in the absence of these vitamins, it can cause the skin lesions and the CNS disorders, central nervous system disorder. It can be destroyed by cooking and taking the oral contraceptives. Niacin or nicotinamide required in 20 mg, mainly found in yeast, wheat and all that. And the part of coenzymes, it is also part of coenzyme, that is NAD and NADPH, which is responsible for acting as a hydrogen acceptors and donors. This is something what we'll be studying in the respiration. And in absence of niacin, it can cause the pellagra. Okay, and then is folacin, that is found in the liver, green vegetables and banana and nuts all. It's a part of coenzyme in protein and nucleic acid metabolism. In absence of folacin, the person may suffer from the anemia. And biotin is enough. It's normally found in the normal food itself. Fresh fruits, vegetable meals, whole grain cereals will be the source of the biotin. It is also coenzyme in the fatty acid synthesis, and in the absence of this, which the person will be suffering from the scaly and itchy skin. And B12 or the cyanocobalamin, it's basically obtained from the liver and eggs, and coenzymes for nucleic acid metabolism. Okay, it's basically functioning as a coenzyme for nucleic acid metabolism, and it is also, in absence of it, it can basically form the pernicious anemia. And this is the one which is deficiency is mainly found in the vegetarian people. The vegetarian people, because the vegetation is not a source of the B12 vitamin, and hence the person may suffer from the B12 deficiency if he is basically following the vegetarian diets. Vitamin C is ascorbic acid. It's mainly found in the fruits, citrus fruits, tomatoes and all that. It is important in the formation of collagen. Collagen is the type of connective fiber, right? We have seen that. And in this absent, the person will be suffering from scurvy. Okay, and lipid soluble are the A, D, E and K. These are the main 5 type of lipid soluble vitamins. About this, all the vitamins you will be okay, so these are the 5 different type of vitamins which are required in different amounts, like 2 mg, 0.1 mg and 15 mg and 0.14 mg. Okay, so retinol is the one which is found from the yellow vegetables and milk and butter. It's the part of it is responsible for part of the visual pigments, that is retinol. Okay, responsible for the proper visual, and it is in its absence, the person may be suffering from night blindness and keratinization of the epithelia, and the strong exposure of light can cause the decomposition of this particular vitamin. Okay, that is calciferol. Calciferol is the one which is found from the milk and fish liver oil, the liver, and it is formed by the ultraviolet light. It is formed in the body, in the skin, particularly by the ultraviolet light of the sun. So it facilitates the absorption of the calcium and phosphorus by intestine, and retention and the deposition of bones. Okay, so it's responsible for the bone regulation. And in the absence of calciferol, vitamin D, the person may be suffering from the rickets in children and osteomalcia in the adults. Okay, and rickets is basically the deformities of the bones. It can be decomposed, or it can be problematic, and it can be decomposed by taking the oral contraceptives. And tocopherol is the one which is vitamin E. It is obtained from the cereal grains, vegetable oils, and it is functioning as an antioxidants, and hence it is responsible for anti-aging also, right? It is in absence of tocopherol, there is a destruction of RBC can take place, anemia can take place, and even at extreme conditions it may lead to the sterility, and it is again decomposed by the heat. The vitamin K, that's phytoquinone, is basically produced from the leafy vegetables, soybean oils, and it is also formed in the body by the bacteria, symbiotic bacteria. So it is responsible for synthesis of the prothrombin or the blood flow. It's for the responsible formation of prothrombin, which is again responsible for the blood clotting. So instead, in the absence of this vitamin K, the blood may not be clotted properly, and this can be decomposed by the prolonged use of the antibiotic, because if we use prolonged antibiotics, they will be killing this bacteria present in the our intestine, and hence will be responsible for its decomposition. Okay, next is calorific value. What is calorific value? So calorific value is basically the amount of heat liberated from complete combustion of 1 gram of food. So if we are basically degrading 1 gram of food, combusting 1 gram of food, the amount of energy released will be called as calorific value. But the amount of energy which is released in the outside the body and the amount of energy is released in the inside the body are totally different, are having deviation. So the energy which is actually released from the body, from the nutrient or for the food substances inside the body, is called as physiologic calorific value. So that is PCV, and the GCV is that the gross calorific value which is outside the body. So there is a deviation from this, like you can see the carbohydrates, the GCV is 4.1 but PCV is 4.0, protein 5.65 and PCV is 4.0. So the actual and the actual value of the calorific value and the which is observed calorific value outside the body are totally different. Okay, so it has to be taken care. Now the nutrition deficiency and the disorders. The person may be suffering from the different type of nutrition deficiencies. Like there are some persons who may not be able to get the proper nutrition. So this condition is called as malnutrition. The malnutrition can be defined as the condition where the person is not able to get the proper nutrition. Now malnutrition can be of both the kinds. It can be the undernutrition and it can be the overnutrition. So if a person is getting too much nutrient or it is getting too insufficient nutrients, then both the conditions are called as malnutrition. So first of all, let us discuss about the undernutrition. So when a person is getting too insufficient nutrients, which will not be able to even meet the energy requirement, it is called as undernutrition, right? So in these cases, the person will be utilizing the utilizing the self body components to get the energy. It will utilizing the self body components for it will start digesting the body components like the protein, muscles and all that, and that condition will be so bad. Okay. And in the case of overnutrition, the person will be consuming more amount of nutrients which is required. So under that cases, this nutrients will be then stored in the form of fats, stored in the form of fats, and will be leading to the different form of problems and complications of the person. And like it will be responsible for increasing the concentration of cholesterol in the blood. Due to this high concentration of the cholesterol in the blood, this cholesterol will be getting deposited in the blood vessels, which will be blocking these blood vessels and will be decreasing the diameter of the blood vessels, hence increasing the blood pressure. And it will also be responsible for the different type of cardiac problems. Okay, it will also responsible for different type of cardiac problems. Okay, and due to deposition of the fats, the person will be suffering from the obesity, and this obesity will be accompanying with different type of lifestyle disorders as well, like the blood hypertension, like the stress, like the diabetes, and like the depressions as well. And these are different type of problems which are also accompanied with this obesity. And in the several cases, it may be also found that it may also causes the cancer like situation as well. So this is how the nutrition deficiency is basically creating problems. Okay, and now the nutrition deficiency is mainly of the diseases which we are discussing right now will be of importance are the kwashiorkor and the marasmus. Kwashiorkor and the marasmus, these are the two type of deficiency disorders which are mainly found in the young children, due to the almost same reason but having differences between the symptoms. Okay, so let us see what is kwashiorkor. So kwashiorkor is mainly caused due to deficiency of protein in the diet. So if the person is not getting proper protein, that person will be suffering from the kwashiorkor. While the marasmus is the one which is not only the deficiency of protein, but along with the proteins, it will not be also getting the proper carbohydrates as well. Hence, it will not be able to carry out the proper functioning of the body with the help of less calories. It will not be getting the calories which are required. Such condition called the marasmus. Okay. And in the kwashiorkor, commonly it affects the babies between the 1 to 3 of age, while in the case of marasmus, it affects mainly the age of the 1 year, the child of the 1 year. Okay. And in the case of kwashiorkor, the subcutaneous fat is still present. It means that the fat which is present just below the skin is still present, which can be utilized further. But in the case of marasmus, that is not present. The fat is totally used up. So all the fat of the body will be utilized up, and hence the person will be observed so skinny, and even the ribs can also be observed. So this makes the person observed so skinny and so malnourished. Okay, and undernourished particularly. In the case of kwashiorkor, the oedema affects the legs and face. So what is oedema? Oedema is the deposition of the fluid substance in the intercellular spaces, right? Which will be responsible for the development of the deposition of the fluid substance, and it will be observed as a bulky part in that particular part where it is deposited in the legs and face particularly. Okay, and in the case of marasmus, such type of deposition is absent, and hence we can say no edema occurs. In the case of kwashiorkor, the skin and the hair color changes with time, but in the case of marasmus, no such type of changes occur. The body becomes so underweight in the case of kwashiorkor, but in the case of marasmus, it is comparatively very underweight. Okay, so it is highly underweight. In the case of marasmus, the body will become highly underweight because it will be not having even the protein, fats, or even the other substance as well for the diet for the body utilization. In the case of kwashiorkor, the appetite is reduced. That the person will not be feeling hungry, and he will not be feeling good to eat. Similarly, in the case of marasmus, the appetite is not affected; it is normal. The patient can be retreated with by providing the proteins supplements to the particular patient. Okay, that is kwashiorkor. In the case of marasmus, the patient has to be treated by giving all the supplements consisting of the proteins along with the carbohydrates and fats has to be provided. Then it can be recovered. So these are the two people who are suffering from this disease. Like this is kwashiorkor, where the hair changes the color, the muscles are vested, the fat is present in the body, still is basically looking thin bit, and it is underweight, and oedema is present in the legs and the faces. While the case of marasmus, the hair is normal, but the face is looking like an old man because all the fat which is deposited is basically, and the protein also getting utilized, and the body fat is also getting utilized. Hence, the ribs are basically observed, and this condition is basically so skinny. Okay, so person will be so thin and very underweight, and no edema is there. Okay, so this is the condition which is observed in the Kwashiorkor. So we have seen the whole digestive system, and now that was all about this digestion and absorption. In the next lecture, we'll start the another physical process, that may be the breathing exchange of the gases. Okay, so that is about the digestion and absorption. So now we'll start. So that was all about the digestion and absorption.